comes in the name of the Lord. Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. During an era where many marriages are marked by conflict, even within the church, couples get a steady stream of messages like, seek your own happiness, or life is too short to live in an unhappy marriage. Some couples give up the fight only to find the next relationship is no different than the one they just left. Our next guest says this unending cycle is not only wearisome, it's physically, emotionally, financially, or spiritually exhausting. Many of the conflicts in relationships begin with misunderstanding and are based on lies, she explains. Others, she says, are based on misguided expectations about roles and responsibilities within the marriage. In her new book, 12 Truths to Change Your Marriage, Nina Roesner explains the differences between a feminist version, or doing marriage, and what she calls a complementary approach. She offers a third idea, a holitarian approach. The Bible teaches that women are equal to men. Neither gender is better or less than the other. There are differences between the genders, differences between people, and therefore differences between marriages. Nina Roesner is the Executive Director of Greater Impact Ministries in a Christian training organization. She has more than 20 years in the communication training industry and has coached executives, managers, individuals, wives, church staffs, and pastors around the country. As a professional speaker for Women's Group and the developers of Daughters of Sarah and the Respect Dare, which is a spectacular work that came out in 2012 that I still have on my shelf, she has seen hundreds of marriages positively impacted by the understanding and application of the biblical concept of respect. Nina writes consistently about family life and our identity in Christ on her blog. She's been married to her husband Jim since 1991, and together they are privileged to be raising and homeschooling still 3 children at homeschool.
Well, one of them got married, the other's in college.
Okay, well, there you go. But here to co-host the Respect Hour, which occurs on the first Thursday of every month at the 11 o'clock hour, is the author of 12 Truths to Change Your Marriage, Nina Roesner. Nina, welcome to Revealing the Truth and to your Respect Hour that you host every month at this time. So great to see you.
Great to be here, Rabbi Walker.
Really is something. You know, we have... people don't know that from a guest interaction perspective, it's usually done by email, and we don't have what you might think of long preparation times or even long planning sessions. It's like, all right, what's on your mind, and here's an idea, and say, okay, we're gonna run with that, because we really are spirit-led and spirit-fed. And this idea about respect, which is really the core of who you are. I consider you to be kind of a model of the respect that you have always shown to me, to Don Otis, our publicist, that we share jointly, that I've seen you in videos and teachings interact with other people, and it is incredibly respectful, and it is biblically so sound and so foundational that without it, it says without faith you can't please God, but without respect, I don't know that you can really have true faith.
Yeah, I think it's a recognition, and we define it as recognizing and acting upon the preciousness of others. And so you and I both have the Spirit of God within us. And so for me to treat you badly, whoa, that's dangerous. That's just completely unacceptable, even if I disagree. And you look at Christianity as a whole, and what is it that we are being seen as in society, and it's very disturbing to me, because we need to be people that can walk through conflict, have difficult relationships, have hard discussions with people that are truthful and honest but respectful. And so, and my dad modeled this for me growing up. He wasn't a believer, I don't think, until the end of his days. And I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but it's amazing how much my father respected other people. He was a businessman in a small town in Montana. And I had the privilege of working for him. And so they said he could sell an Eskimo a refrigerator, and I watched him fire a guy, and well, I overheard it. I was sitting outside the door when it happened, and you could just hear, I wasn't intentionally listening, but the guy was just so thankful and appreciative of being able to work for my father, and and he's getting fired, you know. And I thought, that's who I want to be. I want to be somebody like that. And then when I learned the verses, when I came to know the Lord, it's like, duh, of course. How could I not be like this? Because that's who Jesus was. He tells the truth, and he interacts in an honest but respectful way. So, and that's what I want to be. And I want to treat others regardless of who they are, whether they're followers or not. I want to treat them with respect.
You know, we've lost sight of that fundamental truth that we are all image bearers. All of us were created by the same Creator, and created in His image, 2 parts invisible, 1 part visible. So you can't see my soul or my spirit, you can see my body. So what image do I bear? It's a spiritual image. It's a spiritual identity that we all share in common from the same Creator. And we were all created with the same purpose, and that is to worship God. We are called to be worshipers of God. And so if we have the same mission, if we have the same Creator, if we have the same image, then what could possibly make any believer feel that they are better than anybody else, and that they should not esteem the other more than themselves, that they should not recognize the gifts that have been imparted to the other person, and that they should be edifying and uplifting and encouraging, because this is what we're all supposed to do for each other. This is the model that Jesus gave us, and this is the core message of Scripture, is that the vertical relationship with God is secured by our faith in Jesus Christ. That check mark, that box is now done. That part of the cross has been fulfilled. What's left is the horizontal, and that is our relationship with each other. And that lasts longer, because if salvation was the end-all and be-all, we'd be sucked out of here. I would say yes to the Lord, and poof, I'm gone.
Poof.
So why do I linger? Why do I live a life, years and years and years in the Lord? Why does He leave me here? Because I've secured my relationship with God. Now He wants 100% of my focus on being an image bearer. Paul says we are ambassadors, we are ministers of reconciliation, and we are God's mouthpiece, as if God were speaking His very words through our mouths.
Yes.
Nina, where did we miss this core message in how we treat each other, and the media and the nastiness and the hatred? And of course, I'm a double whammy, is that I'm hated by every community. I'm a Jewish believer in Jesus, so the Muslims want to kill me. You know, there's people that are anti-Semitic, and they want me out of the picture, and so, you know, it's you're dodging bullets all the time.
Yeah.
How do we get to this point where we lost? And at the very core of this, I'm responsible. My pastor is not responsible. My husband, my wife, not not speaking in the but it's not your spouse's responsibility.
Right.
It's your responsibility, and it's assigned as a person. And Paul says, I no longer look at people the same way.
Yeah. Who is he looking at most of the time? Not himself, and certainly not other people. He's looking at God first and foremost. And we're in such a loud culture. How do we interact with each other if we're constantly exposing ourselves to the conflict and the cacophony of lies and just stress and chaos that's out there? I can't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook. I use a timer Some of my business is on Facebook, our ministry is on Facebook, so we have to go interact some. But that whole environment is just, it'll eat your soul if you spend much time on it. And I'm not saying there's not some good sides to it too, but we're so overwhelmed in the media with messages that we're on the throne. It's all about us. And, to fight for our rights with these other people and to tell them how it is. And the more we spend time with the Lord and the more we interact with him and the more we listen, and that's a thing that none of us do well, myself included, the more we do that, when we listen to him, then we can see him in other people. We can see his image and we can see him in ourselves. And I think that's where a lot of our communication goes awry, is that we judge ourselves, we're critical of ourselves, we're competing to be something that we're not, we're trying to, we're prideful, we got all this mess inside of us instead of listening to God. And so when that's inside of us to begin with, then we go out and we try to interact with somebody else, that's just a hot mess. You can't give out what you don't have within you. And unless our primary relationship on an average day should be more time with him, listening, than with anyone else, including the junk in our head. So it's just not helpful, and it messes up all of our relationships when we don't have that focus right.
When you go to Scripture and it says, husbands, love your wives, wives, respect your husbands, there's obviously in the translation of that, it is not a mutually exclusive. Husbands, love but disrespect your wives,
right,
and wives, respect but don't love your husbands.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that kind of messaging, but we've kind of packaged it into an expression, quoting a verse, and that's what we stay within the confines of that verse. But we're different. Men and women are different.
Yeah.
Dr. Gary Chapman, who has been a guest on this program many times, the love languages, and we talk about it in almost every environment. Love languages from the Lord is his new piece, which is just phenomenal. That after 45 million copies of love languages, and he's still coming up with new ways. And he's so vibrant and so expressive, and he's such a great guest, and we've been so favored to have him on. But it's always, in all of the love languages, is respect.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether or not it's acts of kindness or acts of service or words of affirmation or whatever the other, physical touch or obviously, I'm single and I'm a dog owner, so giving a bone and brushing and all those other things. No, that's not where. But you know what I'm saying is that at the very core of it is respect is a compound issue. There's appreciation, which is a part of respect. There is a certain amount of admiration. There's a certain amount of trust. There's a certain amount of selflessness within the concept of respect. It's a very compound, very multi-dimensional word that I don't think we spend any time doing the etymology of the word respect and the concept of respect, but it's really at the very core of healthy relationships.
Yeah, it really is, because there's a sense of value that is communicated, that I value you as my spouse, as my child, as my sister, brother, mother, father, whatever. There's that inherent preciousness is communicated through the value that I place upon that. And that's a problem, is that I don't always, and I meaning, generally all of us, we don't place value on other people sometimes, or we place too much value on them, and then they become an idol. And what we need to value most is our relationship with God. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, and that respect, that reverence, that awe, without understanding who we're talking to, who we're dealing with, who created us in the very first place, then we really have no context to base any of our other relationships around any of it. And you look at how 1 Peter 3:7 tells husbands that they're to honor their wives, and that God's not going to answer their prayers basically if they don't. And so women get all bent out of shape sometimes when, I know I did. I was sitting in a marriage class the first time I heard Ephesians 5:33, and all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'm like, are you kidding me? I grew up in a culture where you had to earn it, right? Even though I'd seen my dad do all these things, I still had that belief. And God doesn't tell us to love people that deserve it. Because if we're going to go that route, I don't know anybody that does. I don't know anybody that deserves love. And so, well, other than Jesus, right? Who is God. So, we have to take the secular definitions and experiences off of those things and look at them from the perspective of who is saying this to us in the first place. And this is God saying this. And I think God tells wives to respect, because I know from being a mom, my oldest is 23. I got a 20-year-old in college, and I have a 17-year-old. She's a junior in high school right now. And I know for me, especially when my kids were little, it was really easy to just be in the mom groove and be directive and kind of bossy with everybody. My husband does not need me to tell him to put his shoes away. He's an adult, and taking a picture of him and seeing him as a child, because that's what I've been doing all day, that's disrespectful on my part. And so having an adjustment mentally, and I think that's one of the reasons that God tells women to do that. I mean, he specifically looks at us in that context of marriage and says, hey, do this thing, because I don't think we naturally are going to see that we have an issue with it. And our husband, I have a particular burden for men in general in our culture right now. It bothers me so much that they're treated as if they're somehow heinous and evil just by existing. And this wave of feminism that is so anti-male just really bothers me. And it goes against everything that the Bible is all about. Love one another, love your enemies. And the fact that women are even making their spouse or our opposite gender an enemy, it's very destructive to our culture and our society. And we're seeing it start at home, I think. So if women can get this right in our homes, then I think we can influence our culture in a way that might stand up to this in a way that's better than what we're currently doing.
But see, at the very core of what you just said is that ministry begins at home, and we're not ministering at home. And because we're not ministering at home, then the home's not a sanctuary. One of the things that I have always done is my home has always been a sanctuary. I make it very intentionally a sanctuary. It is my safe place. It is my go-to place for safety. It's where my, not prized possession, I'm very much a minimalist, so I don't have a lot of possessions, but I have created an environment with lighting and with art and with just colors to make it, you walk in and you feel this overwhelming sense of peace. And Patty, my mail person, has walked in, and she said, sometimes I could drop it off at the mailbox, but I know your schedule because she watches the show, so she knows I'm home Wednesday afternoons. And so she'll come by and she'll knock on the door. She said, I just want to come in and soak some of this up before I get back in the truck. And so it's kind of important. I didn't do that in marriage because I was the sanctuary was the sanctuary that I was the rabbi over. So
Sure.
there was a certain amount of focus which was lost. We're not getting this message. We're not being taught this. This is not a small group subject. You have on NinaRoesner.com, you have it's one of the greatest resources. You do such a tremendous amount of production work in making sure that you get messaging out on a regular basis, and what you do with Greater Impact is just as equally, but consistency. Nina Roesner is consistent. One of the things I've known about you since the time, and it's been now, we're over 2 years, almost 2.5 years in this relationship of having you on the program and getting to know you. You are consistent. I would never know if there was trauma in your life because you are consistent and you're girded up because of that consistency. So I believe that you would respond in a more calm, respectful manner to trauma or to strife or to problems which occur, and that there's a certain sense of peace about you that makes you a great guest and a great co-host for this, but also makes you so intuitive when it comes to this issue of respect and how we process it differently. Mm-hmm. How do women process respect?
Oh, golly, that's an emotional word for women. When I remember so many blog posts that got a lot of criticism early on when I started, that women would write in the comments, well, don't I get respect too? Why am I supposed to respect him? And I'm like, okay, I'm not talking about what he can do for you. I'm talking about what you can do for him. This is what my goal is right now. And I'm not saying that, marriage isn't, both people need to be participating. It needs to be reciprocal, absolutely. But I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to you. And women have turned this concept of respect into something that is demanding and aggressive, and it in terms of receipt of respect. And so you can't yell at somebody into loving you. You can't berate someone into treating you well. That just it never works. We do a summer retreat here in Cincinnati called Deflating Defensiveness. And the place that we start is with our own defensiveness as wives and moms, because the culture is so nonstop in your face. And the consistency you see is really God, because, women have more emotional regulation issues than men typically do. And I don't mean that as a gender biased, nasty statement. It's based on research. If you look at the Big Five personality traits indexes that's been around for 25 years, it's the most reliable and valid research study that's been conducted, and it's cross-cultural. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, this applies. Overall, men and women are the same. But where we're different, we're pretty different. And women typically show up higher in emotionality and higher in agreeableness, which means that when we disagree with something, we might get upset about it, and we might also not say anything because we are so agreeable, we might not speak up. And so not knowing how to speak up then damages our relationship, because when we do finally, because the emotion's in there, it usually has been in there for so long, it just explodes all over someone, and then you've damaged the other person.
Right.
And so we haven't respected ourselves. And then we're not respecting the person that we're with, whether it's our husband or our child. And those types of things, women don't see initially because their pain is so big and the emotions are so close to the surface that they don't see those things. And then when they realize that they've hurt their husband, and then the light bulbs come on, and then the blinders are lifted and things start to change for them.
It seems that we've turned self-respect into the idol,
Mhm.
and we've allowed ourselves to become little gods again, the same way that we did at Babel, and that we become the center of our universe. And so I have this self-respect, and you can't talk to me that way, and you can't treat me that way because I'm somebody.
Yeah,
You know, I'm nobody. We record before a live audience on Monday nights and Tuesday nights in 2 different locations, and some of the people have kind of implied, well, you know, it's really cool that the show host will come sit with us and have a cup of coffee after the show is shot, and I'm going like, well,
right.
who is he? Where is he?
Yeah.
And they're going, you know, well, you're the celebrity. You're watched by millions of people. And I'm going, no, you have no idea. I mean,
Right.
I'm Ragsby's owner. That's what I am. I have
Yep.
a 12-pound dog. That's my identity. I'm, you know, that's, you know, I belong to her. There's my identity, and the Lord.
Yeah.
This idea of fame and fortune, and that you're deserving of this or that is preposterous.
Right.
It's unbiblical, and it creates so much strife and so much contention that I have to outdo, and I have to outpost, and I have to outshine. You know, I sit under the spotlight. Let me tell you that living in a glass house is not fun.
No.
Recording every comment you make and broadcasting it out to the world is not fun. And the candor in which we do it, and the candor in which I do it before live audiences, we step on a lot of toes, and our message is, if we stepped on your toes, kindly move your feet, because we're not backing off the message. That's why we don't have sponsors and we don't sell advertising, is because we're going to continue to bring the message of biblical truth, and it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to squirm because your doctrine speaks differently. We're not doctrinal, we're biblical. We're the Bible people. That's what we are. If it's not in the Word of God, everything else, it's just an opinion. Okay? You can have your opinion about the Word of God, but I want to know what the Word of God says. Okay? And in this matter, in this respect area, God has a lot to say, and we have a lot of confusion to contend with. We're talking with Nina Roesner during the Respect Hour, which occurs on the first Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time. She is the author of and creator of the Respect Dare, and this new book, 12 Truths to Change Your Marriage, A Respect Dare Journey for Wives, written by Nina Roesner. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about these differences between men and women and what we can do to bridge the gap by using words and actions which are edifying, and as image bearers, what we can do to take that polishing cloth and kind of wipe that image clean of all the muck and mire of the world that's gotten on us, because surprisingly, the Bible tells you that your friendship with the world makes you a hater of God. It's a pretty strong statement. Friendship with the world is hatred towards God. And if you're walking with an attitude of disrespect towards any person, of any gender, any race, any national origin, any religion, any lifestyle, and you're disrespectful to one of God's creatures, we all struggle with all kinds of things. There is no room in God's economy for mistreatment of others, even if they have a different opinion than you. There is a way to express it in love and win the hearts of the lost for the kingdom of God. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do, and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Welcoming you into the second segment, second half of the Respect Hour, co-hosted by our good friend Nina Roesner, who is the Respect Dare. I don't want to say daredevil because not as edifying, but the one who has taken on the concept of really throwing down to the body of Christ and saying, you're just not walking in respect, and I dare you to repair and restore and reinstitute a model of respect into your marriage, into your life, into your family, into your community, into your church, and watch what changes. And it's radical, and it really is extraordinary. And she shares those truths with us here every month. Nina, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we were talking about women process respect emotionally. That's like something I've never heard before.
We process just about everything emotionally. I mean, when you do the personality trait indexes, you see that we are higher in emotionality. It's just how we're wired, and it's hormone based. Not that we're this. I don't want to do some stereotypical woman thing, where you're all hormonal and so you're bad. Those hormones are exceptionally necessary. The reason that women have them is to increase bonding and safety of children. And so one of the first hormones that comes into being in our relationship that we're aware of intellectually, that with the baby outside the womb, is oxytocin. And so as we sit there and nurse and feed and play and make eye contact with the baby, that eye contact is teaching the baby that I can trust somebody on the planet. And if we're on our phone instead of being with baby, baby learns nobody's here for me. And then we start seeing failure to thrive and all of that showed up in that horrible situation in Romania that a lot of people are familiar with. And so you really have to take a look at, women's, the way that God created us. We have significantly less testosterone than men do. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to be smaller. That's okay. We're different. And the problem that a lot of women in our culture have today is they view some sort of difference as some sort of negative thing. And because our country worships, our cultures worship money more than we worship relationship and understanding creation, we will think that if we're not CEO of some big corporation, or if we don't make exactly the same amount of money. And the thing is that, that there's 17 or 19, I can't remember which, indices that tell you what the pay gap is about. One of those is gender, but a lot of that, it has to do with other factors, like women working part-time and wanting to be with their children and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I think that design is an incredibly rewarding and amazing part of life. And I watched the CEO of Pepsi-Cola talk about this one time, and she said, you cannot be CEO of a major corporation and have children and do both well. Something's got to give. And we can say that we're going to lean in and all that other stuff, and we may not know any different because we've never done this before, kind of thing, and it may feel fine, but we also won't know what we're missing. And so, I don't have a relationship with grandparents. I might be fine, right? But I look at my friends whose parents are interacting with their children, and I know that there's something there that I didn't get. And so while I don't mean to be condemning or critical of people that work, I've worked my entire life. Since I was 13 years old, I'm almost 52. And I've worked part-time in the years where I've had children. And my daughter's 17. I'm still not completely full-time, but I want to be present. I want the relationship with them. That's the most important thing. And it's, we've talked about being image bearers. We house the temple, but we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. He lives within us. And so we have to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. We have to decide that we're going to make this temple someplace that's hospitable in a positive way. And I think we get confused with the self-respect and the selfishness. It's a fine line between the two. It's respectful for me to get self-respecting, for me to get sleep at night, because then I'm going to have more emotional control the next day. It's self-respecting. It can be selfish for me to get sleep at night too, right? If I'm ditching my responsibilities. And so, how we talk about those things, I think you and I are on the same page with that. But the women have to take a look at the culture that we're in, and we have to make decisions based on whose we are and who we are in Him versus what the world's doing, because the world is sending a whole lot of messages that are messing up our families and messing up our culture as a result, and it's very sad.
I found myself in a season where I was, I would say, borderline jaundiced-eyed, critical, having critical thoughts about a number of different situations, people in particular roles that were in my organization. And I finally had to stop, and I said, Lord, the only way that I'm going to be able to survive life is if you can somehow help me see this person the way you see them.
Yes.
If you can just show me what they look like to you, because they look really bad to me. And if they look really bad to me, I'm probably going to say the wrong thing. I'm Jewish, I'm a believer, I've got this chutzpah. I'm a leader. I've been a trailblazer, a corporate executive for Hewlett Packard with AT&T in the boardroom and the upper echelon of major corporations. I'm not shy, but I am an introvert. It's just I play this part and do it well, which lots of introverts do. I'm perfectly comfortable in that sanctuary, and there could be no phone call, no conversation for 24, 48 hours. Wouldn't bother me at all to be just there. But I had to ask that question. I had to ask the Lord to say to him, listen, I don't like this person. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like what they're saying. I'm not comfortable around them. And you created them, and you didn't. I will tell you that the expression I used is that God makes the cows make the poop. God doesn't make poop. Okay, so this wasn't. I was speaking to 1,300 young people.
Okay.
These are young college, high school seniors, college freshmen, and trying to put an explanation about putting God in His creation. And so this line comes out of me. All right, and people just go nuts, and they would say, "We want T-shirts. We want, we want on the front of it, God makes the cows, and on, in the back." And so they just jumped all over that because it's true. Okay, my father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Okay, that could be messy if I'm just looking at the ground. Okay, but I need to be looking at the magnificence of this kingdom, not the mud pies. And so when we take on this jaundiced eye and this critical spirit, it is a spirit, and there is a spirit of disrespect, and it is rampant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think ultimately we're disrespecting God when and I've been critical too, so I'm not going to say that I'm not that, but we all have those moments, sometimes daily, but we're disrespecting God when we refuse to pay attention to everything He's given us. And so, we're going to create our reality in our head based on what we choose to perceive. And so my glass is either half full or half empty, right? We have that. And how many times does the Bible tell us about being thankful, living with a heart full of gratitude? I mean, if you look at Philippians 4:6-13, that's a progression, if you will, where we cast our worries to God, and then He gives us. But as we do that, we give Him praise and thanksgiving. And so we're being thankful in the midst of difficulty. We're giving our worries to God, and then He gives us the peace that surpasses understanding. And then we're able to think rightfully, and whatever's true, noble, right, praiseworthy, admirable, excellent, and all those things. That's what we're supposed to be thinking about, instead of we're deciding this person's not awesome or we don't like something about them, like you were saying. And at the end of that, we end up with contentment and then the strength that we can do all things. But that verse at the end, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, is not about, I want this, so therefore I can do all things. No, all things are in His will. What's His will? That's what we have to be about. So
you mentioned that women process respect emotionally. Men process it, at least my experience, it's almost visceral. It's marrow. It's the fabric of who we are. We're defined by our work, and the success and the command and the authority and all these other things that man was to subdue the earth. He was to conquer. He was supposed to take over. And then even in the New Testament, Jesus is telling His disciples, I give you the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing whatsoever shall harm you. And so He's reaffirming this dominion mandate that was lost and usurped in the Garden of Eden. He's giving it back to us through his shed blood and saying, listen, I'm restoring this to you. Now go out and make disciples. Wow. I've got to be a disciple manufacturer. Okay? I've got to go out and make and take what is in the world and make, mold, shape, form, build, carve, refine, do all these things to make, because that's my charge as a man, is to go out and make disciples of men.
Yeah.
And we process respect so differently.
Well, and you speak that language more naturally than women do. One of the main ways that women communicate differently than men is that we are participative in our communication, meaning when someone's talking, we're like, oh yeah, and really, and we speak over and with and all of that. Well, men perceive that oftentimes as interrupting. And if you sit in, I've been working since I was very young, so I've been in a lot of meetings, and I worked in manufacturing for a number of years. I was often the only woman in the boardroom, right? And when you watch men interact with each other, they take turns until they're going to do something with that. They're going to take control. So they take turns until they take control. And if they interrupt, that's there's usurping power. And so one of the worst things that a woman can do in a conversation with a man is to interrupt or to participate with him as if he's female, because he's not. And as much as I love the participative type of communication, it doesn't help our relationships to not be cognizant of the differences. And we can recognize that when our husband might interrupt us, then we can look at that and go, okay, what did I just say that potentially may have made him feel threatened? Because there's a reason he's trying to get control here. So potentially I said something that he perceived something differently than I meant it. And I ran across a research study. I wish I had it handy so I could tell you where it was from. But last week I was reading that said that we often think we know what the other person's thinking. And most of the time, especially in our most intimate relationships, we are wrong. We're just completely clueless. And so we get an exercise by jumping to conclusions, and that's really a waste of time and energy, and it's damaging to our relationships. So I really relate to what you were talking about with men being tasked for these things, and women don't appreciate that. We tend to, well, I say we, and I'm generalizing, a lot of what you see in the media from women that are upset and loud and disrespectful to themselves and their gender, and they don't speak for me. But you see a lot of condemnation and criticism of men in general. And I think that's just very sad, because when you look at the wiring that men have, only 0.02% of the National Guard, the Army, the Marines, the protective services like police, firemen, the EMTs, only 0.02% are women. So naturally, men are wired to go and protect. And women, what do we want? Do we want someone who's weak? Do we want to be responsible for everything? I don't think so. I don't want to be married to a child. I want someone who stands on his own and protects and, goes forth and leads. And I'm right there with them, and I think that's what most women want, but we're so overly sensitive and so defensive in our culture that we perceive insult where there isn't one. I mean, I may have told you this before. It continues to floor me that my son was 15 years old. He was at a camp. He opens a door for a young woman who was overburdened, had her arms full of stuff. And she was like, I can't believe you're doing that for me. That's sexist. And she just at him. And he's like, fine, get it yourself. He walked in with the door shut, and then she's standing there with her arms full and couldn't open the door. And I thought, you know what? What do you want? I mean, and I asked him, I said, did you do that because she was female? And he said, I did it because she had her arms full. I would have done it for anybody. And if she'd have been right behind me and been a dude, I still would have opened the door, because he's respectful as a human. And, that's kind of the goal, I think. Eric, is that we move towards, what would God have us do in as many circumstances, because we want to see people the way that he does and have that compassion and love like that, because we don't do it naturally, easily.
Yeah, I think men process respect as when there is an issue of disrespect, it's an attack on who you are, not what you do.
Right.
It's a personal affront. You're attacking me as a person, my core values, who I am as a human being, not the action. When you talk with children, you have to be very careful that you convey the message, I love you, but I don't like what you did. Okay? Well, when you're talking to men, it's respect is that same kind of thing. If you're going to venture into the area of having a conversation about an action, it's got to be framed in such a way that it stays out of the realm of who the person is, because we automatically go to, this is an attack on me you're talking about a core value. It's just, this is an attack on me. You are attacking my very being, not this action. And so the dynamics of communications are completely different in how we convey respect, and then how we process and receive, and what it looks like and sounds like. So it's the reason you write your books. It's because we need the tools of how to talk to each other, and there needs to be change. We have to change what we believe about, as you talk about in the book, is what we believe about God is the very first change we need to make.
Yeah.
Is, do we really believe that you are created in the image of God, and that I'm created in the image of God, and that we are no different? We are exactly the same. Same spirit, same God, same image bearer, different package. Okay? Content, same. Gifting, different, as it should be. And Paul makes it very clear, not everybody is called to be a teacher, not everybody is called to be a prophet, not everybody is. So it's a calling, a gifting. But what's interesting about all the fruit of the Spirit, not fruits, but fruit of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit are many, is all the fruit is mature. Something, in order for something to be a fruit, it can't be a bud. It's got to be ripe. It's got to be mature. So we're given these mature fruit, but we have to grow into being able to embrace the maturity of the fruit that we possess from birth. I mean, this is the fruit of the Spirit. And so once you come into faith and you receive this infilling of the Holy Spirit, this is the fruit of the Spirit. T.D. Jakes said that patience is a fruit of the Spirit. Sometimes his is a raisin, looks like a raisin. He said it's still but it's still a fruit.
Yeah.
It's still a fruit. So we do understand that. We've been talking with Nina Roesner, author of The Respect Dare and 12 Truths to Change Your Marriage, or Respect Dare Journey for Wives. She is the host of this Respect Hour right here on Revealing the Truth on the first Thursday of every month at the 11 o'clock hour. You can find more about her at Nina Roesner, that's ROESNER.com. And you should follow her blog and pay attention to her, because she's somebody who knows what she's talking about, and she actually lives what she believes, which is why we have her here every month with us. Nina, always great to see you. God bless you and your family, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Same to you, sir.
God bless. Bye. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.